Yo, I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
Yo.
And we are the Right Hand Drive Guys. Today we're going to talk about how to buy a right-hand drive car through many different examples of what you can do, how you can do it, and how to get it registered. So, Aaron and I both have different experiences buying our right-hand drive cars, from using an importer, using an exporter, buying one in the U.S. personal sale, and buying one in Japan at a dealership. So I'll start off. My R33 GTR I purchased through an importer. And as Aaron and I were just talking about, some importers have stock,
Right.
and other ones will source a car in Japan for you and import it.
Right. Kind of like a broker.
Right.
In a sense.
And so, it comes off the boat and it's at their dealership waiting for you. You don't have to handle any sort of real paperwork or dealing with anyone besides that specific importer/dealer. So I personally purchased my R33 GTR from JDM Sport Classics, who is an importer located in Three Rivers, Michigan. And overall, my experience with an importer was all right. I went and looked at the car prior.
Right.
It was kind of timed, like we only got this much time, so my wife and I went and looked at it. I FaceTimed Aaron. We did our best with the limited time that we had, but that was our opportunity to check out the car.
Right.
So if you work with an importer who does have U.S. stock, then that is an advantage, which is being able to see the car before you purchase it.
Right. Even be able to test drive it or
right.
pick
It was
apart,
like a huge snowstorm when we went.
Right.
So like they're like, you want to drive it? We wouldn't recommend it. You're going to be plowing snow. And I'm like, dude, if I'm buying this thing, there's no way it's being driven out there right now. So, but I did get to see it, and it was clean. There were things I didn't notice. There were things that they didn't disclose. So, in my opinion, the harder part about an importer is if they have stock, they've already invested in this car and they need to sell it.
Right.
So that's my negative with it, is that, not saying that anyone's going to take advantage of you. It's obviously case by case, but they need to sell that car.
Right.
So they want to sell that car. So you have to also understand that. And so in my case, I didn't realize that the car was a full respray. And some of that was what we'll talk about later, me doing my due diligence. And I would have noticed that on the placard on the firewall that it was a KH3 car, but the paint was actually CM1 white. Right. So that's like, my negative experience. However, and like one of like some of the suspension was blown out and stuff, which I couldn't see because I couldn't inspect the car to that point.
Right.
However, is what it is. You're buying a car as is. So with the importer, it was a all right experience, but you're also paying their markup, right? Like,
it's a business.
Yeah, they need to make money, and so they found this car somewhere in Japan, imported it, now they're selling it to you. That costs money.
Right.
So I personally, would not use an importer again because I don't want to pay their fee, and I understand now how to do it in other ways.
Right.
So using an importer, basically, the car usually is already here, or they can find you one. You won't have to deal with customs, import paperwork, the ports. You won't deal with any of that with an importer.
Right.
You will walk up, the car will be there, you make your payment, you're good to go.
Right. You will pay for that, though.
You will pay for that, though. So that's an importer. Next one in my experience list is using an exporter. And so that's with Trevor from Keizo, and we've talked about him in an earlier episode. Using him, two major differences between the importer and the exporter.
Right.
Exporter, you're not seeing the car first. Okay, that's like your biggest thing. Unless you go over to Japan, you are not seeing that car before you buy it beyond pictures.
Right.
So you have to be okay with that, which means you have to work with somebody that you trust. You can, but you can't just work with any old Joe over there that says that they can export you a car. You might get a car, but it may not be what you were thinking.
Right. You don't know how well they're going to inspect it.
Right. And so you can hire a third-party inspector. In this case, Trevor told me to hire a third-party inspector, which was a guy named Nick. Did an awesome job inspecting the car. He is an inspector, and he wants you to buy the car. Just remember that. They're going to be honest, but they also want you to purchase a car.
Right.
So, but using Trevor, okay, he is a super honest guy, like we said in the other episode, and he will not let you buy a car that is not what you want. He'll pass over 100 cars to find the one that you're really into. So if you can find an exporter that you can create a relationship with, like we both know Trevor now,
Right.
then you can probably be pretty comfortable doing this.
Yeah.
You know, like I would be comfortable buying another car from Trevor because the GTT that he sourced for me was in excellent condition, and he downplayed how excellent it was.
Right. And he was completely honest and upfront with everything about it.
Yeah.
So it's that trust that makes it easy, right?
Right. So would I purchase from any old exporter? No, because I really don't want to get like the shaft, right?
Right.
But would I choose working with Trevor over using an importer again? Absolutely, because I have patience. I can wait for the car. That's the negative. You got to wait for the car.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times with the importer, if it's on like site, then you can walk away with it that day.
Right.
Sometimes if you're sourcing one with an importer, which isn't what I would do, but if you're sourcing one, then you still got to wait, but you don't got to deal with the port stuff like we said. I'm dealing right now with the port stuff from the exporter, right? Because Trevor will get it out of Japan. It's now my responsibility to figure out how to get it from the port to my house, get it released from port, cleared, all that. So a little more work on my end, but the price is substantially less because you're not paying the importer's fee.
Correct.
You're not paying that like...
You're having to
whatever.
just put in a little more legwork.
Yeah, you got to, but you also learn. You gain the
Right.
knowledge, which is huge, because now after I go through this, I could go through it 5 more times. I could help my buddy go through it, like whatever, right? It's kind of pretty simple,
Right,
you know?
right.
So with an exporter, if you can't go to Japan, you're taking a little bit of a risk. However, you are saving money, and if you find the right exporter, then it's really no sweat because you don't have to kind of worry about that. Am I getting screwed if
Right.
you have that good relationship? So those are kind of my 2 experiences with importer, exporter. R33 used an importer, R34 GTT used an exporter.
Right.
Now for personal sale, I have bought right-hand drive cars personal sale, but not anything recent. So I'll turn it over to you because I know you recently bought your, well, not recent now,
Right.
like 2 years, right?
A couple years ago.
Yeah, bought your R32 via a guy.
Yeah. It was on Marketplace, actually. And Facebook Marketplace is kind of, I don't know, taking over what Craigslist used to be, I feel like. So,
For
like,
sure.
back in the day, it would be Craigslist. Now it's kind of Marketplace. So, for me, I went on and I found a R32 GTST, what I was looking for. Few-hour drive from where I was, and I just immediately hit up the guy and was like, "What's up? What's up with it?
What's the deal?
What's the deal?"
Is
And
this
it was
thing clapped out, or can I come get this shit?
right. Yeah, will this make the drive back home?
Right.
So I hit him up. We talked. I ended up buying it. Long story short, and it was one of those things where, looking back now, I would have done things a little bit differently. And what I mean by that is there was a few things that I was just kind of like overlooking on the car. One, I was excited
Right. That's
obviously
the hardest part is like that. And I could see that too, right? Like anytime, and not to say it's impulse, but just any time that you get your heart and mind set on something and you can't squeeze through those feelings almost.
Right.
You get jaded by it. You got blinders on sometimes. I mean, I did too when I picked up the R33 or when I was looking at it, I walk right past the paint lines and stuff. Don't even acknowledge the fact that there's overspray everywhere.
Yeah.
Just to tell myself this is the car. So I can see that 100%.
But my experience isn't going to be the same with everybody's. You know what I mean? Like I think marketplace or any online sale where you can go see the car, test drive it, whatnot from an individual is a decent thing to do if one, you don't have the patience to source one overseas and have it imported, or if you just don't trust that process.
Right.
But the thing with finding cars on the marketplace is that you're going to be paying that little bit extra tax that because they probably bought it from an importer or a dealership or whatever it might be.
Yeah, there's a few guys obviously that are importing them themselves, but like for the most part, you're right.
They're going to be that price point that's
unless they're desperate.
Right,
unless
they're desperate
somebody came
or
across hard times. Yeah. Right, that's true.
So I mean, you will be paying a little bit extra, but you will be getting the car then and there, like we talked about. You don't have to wait for it. You don't have to be on a boat. It's already in America.
Hopefully registered legitimately.
Right. Hopefully registered legitimately. It doesn't have 240SX VINs or something on it weird.
Yeah. This swap.
But I think that for some people that's the move. But you can't get burned like that because
and we're going to talk about this in a few minutes about how to protect yourself in those situations, especially on marketplace when somebody isn't a first-time seller, in that sense, right? Because you over importing and exporting, you can get burned personal sale, and the repercussions for that person are a lot of times less if they aren't a repeat seller, right? Because let's just say guy sold you yours, ends up whatever cylinder 3 and 4 smoked, whatever, right?
Yeah.
He just disappears.
Right.
It don't matter. In that sense, you can drag him through the mud on some groups and whatnot, but he don't care, dude.
That kid's not even in the scene.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
he just did it. Yeah.
And that kind of happened to me. The car was initially missing a corner light. The guy was like, yeah, I got it at my other house. I'll send it to you in the mail. I knew that was never going to happen.
Nobody's sending you nothing in the mail.
Yeah, no one's sending you anything afterwards, after the fact. But so, I mean, whenever you're buying one on Marketplace, I think it could go one of two ways. Like, the car has been in America. It's been in our hands for however long. It could be modified to a point that's, like, really nice and clean, or it could go dead opposite. Someone might have just rigged everything and neglected maintenance because they couldn't find the parts or couldn't afford the parts, whatever it might be.
Right. Could have been a guy in over his head, so he just kept going or kept it moving. Yeah.
Right. And, it's just, you kind of never know what you're going to get, and you just kind of have to pay attention, and we'll talk about it later, but do your due diligence.
Yeah. I would agree. I mean, that, right, and we'll touch on that in a few. But the biggest part of buying one of these cars, no matter what, is understanding what you're buying.
Yeah. I mean, you're buying a 90s car, so like that's going to come with some issues no matter what it is.
Yeah, or where you got it. I mean, so that's the tough part. But would you say that that's pretty much, personal sale in a nutshell? Just kind of, you got to know what you're getting into.
Yeah, and expect to pay a little bit more. You're going to pay that little bit extra, maybe even a little more than the dealer, unless you come across that guy that's desperate or, needs to get rid of his car because, his wife's pregnant.
No, or he's getting
married or getting a house.
That's always what it
is.
We
always see the examples of, guys got to sell it.
Yeah, gotta put
grow
priorities.
Up. Priority, whatever
it's
it might
funny,
be.
Yeah.
But don't let that blind you to the fact that that car might be a little bit messed up.
Right. He may have
that just might be his excuse.
Some stuff that he never finished, but he doesn't want to disclose.
Right.
Yeah. So moving on. So we did importer with my R33, exporter with an R34 GTT, personal sale with the R32 GTST.
Yep.
And so the fourth option that we're going to cover would be purchasing from a dealership in Japan. And you can do this, which I did with the R34 GTR, okay? So I purchased it from Top Rank. So you can do this in multiple ways, okay? You don't have to use Top Rank. You know, you could hit up Garage Defend.
Right.
You can hit up Global.
Right.
You know, you can go through some of these super reputable Skyline dealerships, and you know, there's other ones obviously for Supras, for Hondas, you know, but obviously us two have our experience with Skylines. So when it comes to the Japanese dealership, okay, a dealership typically has cars on lot, okay, because otherwise in a dealership can be an exporter. That's part of their business, right? Like, so when we talk about these things, an importer / U.S. dealership, right? Those are kind of like the same thing because no matter what, they had to import it, right? But an exporter in a Japanese dealership sometimes are the same thing and sometimes they're not. It just depends. You know, sometimes you have to use an exporter to get your car that you bought at the Japanese dealership out, you know? So I bought the GTR from Top Rank for the specific reason, as we've covered in a previous episode, we intended on going to Japan and driving the car. So if you purchase from a Japanese dealership, chances are they've gone through the car to an extent, they've PDI'd it, it's ready for you in the sense of generally mechanically and, you know, the way that it looks. They've gone through it. Right.
Especially if it's been chucking. So that's pretty strict
well, for
inspection.
sure. Yeah. If you're going to drive it over there like we did and it goes through those inspections, then you know you're good mechanically in that sense. You know, yes, there could be some little issues. These are, as Aaron said, 90s cars. You're going to have little items, you know. However, with that, I purchased this from Top Rank, and we went over there. We jumped in the car. We drove it 5,000 kilometers. We never blinked an eye. We never had a single issue. We had too much tire pressure, and that was it.
I don't even think we checked the oil.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It maybe didn't even have oil. It ran like it did, but so that's the thing, right? If you did this with an exporter, A, you wouldn't be able to drive the car over there.
Right.
B, it would not have gone through some of these little checks that a car from a dealership has. And so therefore, chances are the car's fine anyways. Yeah. But it's kind of like reassurance, right? Especially if you want to drive it over there. And that's like the difference, right? This is why I paid a little more for my R34 GTR, was to have that reassurance of it's going to be registered, inspected over there, and I can drive it. You know, I probably would have bought the car through Trevor if I just wanted it to sit in the storage and then come over here. You know, which would have been just fine. But in order to kind of achieve the dream, we needed to be able to drive it over there and do what we did. So Japanese dealership, I recommend in a few situations. I recommend if you're looking for a specific car, you want a V-Spec 2, you want a M-Spec NER, you want any of these type of things, I personally, would go through Garage Defend, Top Rank, one of these companies who that's their thing, right? Like they source these beautiful limited cars that they don't want them to have accidents. They don't want them to have a repair history because that just reduces the value to the end consumer, you know, in that sense. So maybe if I was looking for a special model, I would for sure go through a dealership and pay the little tax to make sure I was getting one of the clean ones. Whereas, you get Trevor to go through the different, auctions and stuff. And it really is kind of hard to fully understand what that car's been through or whose it was,
Right.
That type of thing. So, with the dealership and exporter, that's really like a preference thing and what your plans are with the car.
Right.
But me personally, I would never not buy a car direct from Japan again unless it was a special circumstance, unless it was some super unique car that was already here and you couldn't really get over there anymore because they were all scooped up.
Right.
Those type of things. So that's my opinion.
Yeah.
On the Japanese dealership. Great experience.
Yeah.
Top Rank takes care of me really well. Like I just said, sent a set of LM GT4s over there. They're getting some Yokohama tires put on them, and they're setting them up on my GTR. I'm not even there.
Right.
I'm paying for it, don't get me wrong, obviously, just like you would anywhere, but like that's super convenient that I can like send over these wheels that I want and they'll swap them out and get everything all set up.
Yeah, and it's super cool that you can drive it.
Yeah,
like
that's the
top rank is, I think, the only dealership that is offering anything like that right now.
Yeah, so you do pay for it. Like,
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, the shuck-in and like the plates and everything, you pay for all of it.
Right, right. But if that's what you want to experience, like that's the experience.
Right, like us having the R34 GTR over there compared to not, our experience would have been way different.
Oh, completely.
Like, way different. Like, us showing up in a car, even though it looks like a rental because of the Wawa plates,
right?
Us just showing up in a Japanese car, an R34 GTR at that, changed the way that we were received from the locals, from the shops that we visited, like all across the board, plus just the experience of like hammering down these highways, and just like
just the personal experience.
Yeah, it was like a really great time. Like I wouldn't take that back for anything, and it was well worth the money to have it shuck in and all those type of things, So I mean, I still haven't gotten the ETC card bill, the toll card bill. I'm like waiting for that.
I'm still getting hit with those.
Yeah, I'm like waiting for that. Like, but still, again, like it doesn't matter. You would have paid those tolls if you had rented a car, and so yes, fully agree. Well worth it. Definitely something I'll never forget, right? Like, I mean, once this car comes over here and it's here, I've driven it on the Wangan, on the C1 loop.
Right.
I've driven it through Toge.
Right.
And now I'm freaking driving it on our crap roads.
Yeah. Hitting 95 with it.
Yeah, I'm hitting old 95. So, that's the thing. So you can do it anyway, right? Like you can do it anyway. But now to really get down to the nitty gritty, you can do it any way you want. But you need to be safe and smart about it.
Yes, definitely be smart.
Yeah, because
you can get burned. And these cars
get burned so hard.
Yeah, and these cars are not cheap. Like if you're comparing these prices nowadays to like what you can buy otherwise, like don't do that because you're gonna hurt your own feelings.
Oh, for sure. Like, purchasing some of these, for example, so let's get into that really, really, really quick, right? So here's the thing, okay? So when I bought my R33 GTR from JDM Sport Classics, this was in 2019.
Yeah.
2019. Okay. The average R33 in Japan was going for between $30,000 and $45,000, in Japan. And JDM Sport Classics had my car listed for $44,000. And to me, that was like, holy crap, dude. Like, I think I remember I, like, jumped right on it because of that price. I was like, dude, holy crap. Like, what's wrong with it? They obviously say, oh, nothing. You know?
Right.
Nothing, And to be fair, like, there was nothing wrong with it. Yeah,
like,
it was just what I'm looking for compared to what they're selling. Yeah. There's a little gap there, and I'm not fully realizing it because of, like we talked about, the whole bright, shiny R33 GTR, and it can be yours.
You want it, right?
Yes, exactly. So I purchase it. They end up refunding me $4,000, so I end up getting it for 40 because I'm like, hey, this is a respray. You didn't disclose that.
Yeah.
Hey, these tains, these shocks are blown. Like,
Right.
you didn't disclose that. And in a miracle, they refund me $4,000.
Yeah,
and now
which was I've never heard of that.
that's what I'm saying. So
good
now
on
I have
them.
a $40,000 R33, and this is like the day before the prices start skyrocketing.
Yeah.
It was kind of wild. And so, that was great. Now that $40,000 GTR probably would go for 55, 60, just in the way that it was, so I got super lucky there, but I did have to pay for it with all of the little things that we end up finding along the way that you don't even, that JDM Sport Classics, unless they rip the car apart, they really wouldn't even have necessarily realized, like.
But they did miss some obvious stuff too.
Yeah, no, they did. But so did I. So that's like buyer's ignorance, which is what we're about to get into, with the exporter, that's great because you're getting it at the cost.
Right.
Like I paid $32,000 for the R34 GTT, and plus of course the shipping, which was $1,800.
Yeah.
Once it gets over here, those are going for easily $40,000 to $60,000.
Oh yeah, 100%.
All day here. So now that you're hearing this, there's some price gaps here. And would you say that your personal sale was about what they were selling? Because from what I remember, Japanese Classics and Duncan at that time, like your car was like, these cars were like kind of bumping.
Right. I got mine for a couple grand cheaper than what they were going for at the dealerships landed in America.
Yeah. So you got a bit of a deal. Right. It was a little modified, but it did need some work.
Right. Definitely needs some work.
That's one of those things, right? Like, again, with the personal sale, you might have a guy that just wants to offload it, but there might be a reason.
Right.
So, and then with the Japanese dealership pricing wise, like, could I have gotten a better deal on an R34 GTR? Absolutely.
Right.
I absolutely could have had Trevor, like I said, find me one for a better price. However, would I have been able to do what I've done with the car already? No. Right. It would have just been sitting either in a warehouse or in a parking lot somewhere until December of 25.
Right.
So that's the thing. There is like a little tax on being able to enjoy the car there, but that's all in your plans, right? So moving on, the biggest thing, like we said, is being safe, because whether you're spending, whatever, 32 on a GTT or over 100 on a GTR, you need to be safe, because you can get screwed on any amount of money. And let's be real, none of us can afford to just throw away money on a car. So what would you say probably the number one thing when you go, before you even commit to anything, before you put a down payment, before you even check your bank account, what do you think you should do?
Well, first thing I would do is whatever car it might be, whether it be a Skyline, Stagia, Silvia, whatever it might be.
Honda Civic.
Yeah, Honda Civic, whatever the car is, there's info out there about it, right? So I would find the common problems, the common areas where the things like to rust, like
the strut tower.
the R33s and 34s, the strut towers rust out. Same with the S15s, the strut towers rust out. Like the rockers, all these popular spots where, if someone's not taking care of their car, it's going to rust out. That is the main thing that I would look for, is like rust and just anything obvious like that. Yeah, those common issues.
So figure out what model you want, right? So let's just say in Aaron's case, he wants an R32 GTST,
right?
Okay, and he also knows he wants a 4-door. He's not messing with the coupes. Okay, cool. Where are 4-doors rusting? What common issues are the RB20s having?
Right.
What exactly where and now you need to geolocate where you don't want a car from, right? Like, we don't want a car from up north.
No.
We don't want a car from anywhere where they treat the roads at all,
Right.
or they have consistent moisture like that. However, obviously, Japan is an island. You do get a lot of moisture north and south just for different reasons.
Right, right.
So sometimes it's unavoidable. But stay away from the rust, because once you're cutting these strut towers out, once you're doing all that, once you're back in America, dude, you're so pissed.
Yeah, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have,
you got to source those parts.
Right. If you can't source the parts, you got to have, a sheet metal guy fab something up.
Right, and that's not what you want.
Right. It's really not. I mean, especially if you're trying to keep things nice and keep it original.
Right.
Like, the best thing to do is start out on a good foot and not have something rusted out. And because, I mean, those examples are out there, but times are getting desperate.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you got to think you have, whatever guy over in Japan that, let's just say he's exported 100 cars now.
Right.
And now these are slim pickings. And he comes across one that
sat on the bottom of the ocean.
Or whatever, and well, we can get it through and we can get it across the ocean and whatever, right? Like, not saying he's a crappy business person, but maybe he's not staying true to his ideals because times are tough, right?
Right.
That happens in almost every industry, literally. So beyond, knowing the flaws of the car, beyond knowing where it came from, now you need to actually know. Now this is the point when, okay, you have either, Trevor has a car for you that he's willing to inspect, okay? Or you found one at JDM Sport Classics, or you found one on Marketplace, right? Yeah. Now you need to know about this car specifically. Exactly what's up with this car the best that you can, right?
Yeah.
Like, so what do you do in America when you're thinking about buying a car, or you go to a dealership and they have a used car? Well, they have a Carfax, right? And that kind of tells you the vehicle history. So Japan also has that, don't they?
Yeah, it's they have something like it.
Well,
it's
right.
The Car VX.
It's CARVX.
Yeah, and that pretty much will bring up. You put in your VIN, you pay like $35, and it'll bring up anytime that car has gone through the auction.
Yeah.
So the pictures.
Or it's been registered too, right? Like
it'll show registrations too.
Like,
I believe
pretty much. Like everything.
Right.
And then also the most important.
Is the auction. It'll show you the auction sheet every single time it went through. It'll show the pictures where, like, I'm sure everyone's seen the pictures of the cars sitting in the bays. You know, they have the front 3/4 and the rear 3/4 picture. They'll send that with it. The interior pictures. Literally everything, all the auction info, they have it. So you pay this money, pay a little bit more to get the inspection sheet translated, yeah. And that will tell you everything about this car.
That's either going to make or break you in the sense of, like, you're either going to be, like, smiling or you're going to be crying.
Right. Like, in my case, whenever I bought this car, it had been completely color changed. And the guy that I bought it from had said, oh, yeah, they did that in Japan. And his reasoning behind saying that is because the stickers, like the fuel grade sticker on the inside of the gas door wasn't painted over, and just stuff like that. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever, sure. I guess this was painted in Japan. I pull up the Car VX. It was not painted in Japan. It was definitely painted in America after it was exported.
Ends up being a Dodge color code.
Yeah, it's literally a Dodge color code, you know? So, like, and the auction pictures kind of told a story of the car, too. I was like, this had to be in a drift car back in the day, and yeah, in the auction pictures, it was flat black, had a body kit, Yeah,
it was a drift car.
It was definitely a drift car. Like,
so for, and I'll tell my story real quick. We did not, like, these first two transactions, my R33 and his R32, we did not do our due diligence.
No, we were way too fresh.
Yeah, which is what we are super pushing to you, is to just do your research and have patience. These cars are amazing. Once you get in it, you'll be very happy. But if you don't do your due diligence, that happiness may come to an end pretty
And you'll
quick.
be paying for it for years on end if you keep that car.
Exactly. So,
which we kind of are.
Yes. And so I bought my R33. I had no idea about Car VX. Send through the car VX, get it back, get it translated. It's just everywhere. It's
X's
just like,
everywhere, all
this
over the
car
body.
is screwed. This car is screwed. It's screwed. It's screwed. And so, if you saw my car right now, you would never think that.
Right.
But like, as Aaron and I just look over the car, even as recent as last night, the car's up on the lift. We're just walking around looking at it. He's like, hey, was this panel replaced?
Right.
And I'm like, no, that's how it is. And then we go and look at the other side, and clearly this panel had been replaced. I had my fenders rolled, and it showed then too.
Right.
And so the whole, rear quarter of my car has been cut and replaced, and I would have had no clue at JDM Sport Classics.
Right.
And it's been 2 years or so, and I still knew but didn't want to like admit it to myself. But then like seeing it and not being able to deny it was very like, oh, wow. Yeah. Like, I don't have this flawless GTR that I thought I was going to have.
The driver's car.
But now, right, I'm driving it. So these are stories of us just not doing our due diligence, but having to deal with the consequences.
Right, exactly. I think we were a little bit too excited on the front end. And
and
we were still fresh at that point. These were our first cars like that we've bought in, almost 10 years. So getting back into it, looking back, I would have been more patient.
Yeah.
Definitely would have been more patient. Definitely would have done more research. And
ditto, yeah.
Yeah, maybe lowballed the guy a little bit more.
Right, tried to save a little more, yeah. And so when we're talking about like importers and personal sale especially, right, these two, another asset that you can use is Facebook groups to verify whether this seller or this importer is legitimate.
Right. There's literally a group called I Got Screwed Over by Shady JDM Importers or something like that. You can find it. But yeah, that group alone is worth a lot,
especially for importers, because there's somebody in there who's dealt with everybody.
Right, you can just search the name in there, and it'll either pop up 1,000 good things or 1,000 bad things about them. Like, it's kind of crazy. But that community is ruthless.
Oh, for sure. So
do not get on their bad side.
Right, and only ask legitimate questions in the sense of you searched, you couldn't find anything about it, then ask, because these guys hear the same thing all the time. Is JDM Sport Classics any good? Is JDM Sport? Yeah, exactly. They've already answered that question a million times. So use the Facebook groups if you can, but just, kind of sort through the answers to make sure that you're getting like what you're looking for. Yeah. So, we're going to wrap this up, but lastly, we just want to talk about registration and insurance, right? If you get it imported by, if you have an importer, a lot of times they'll handle the registration for you for a fee, or give you all of the paperwork in order to go to the DMV and be successful there. If you use an exporter, you're going to need to find a broker, and you're going to need to get some help getting all of that paperwork handled and getting the car released and all of that. You can do it on your own, but no matter what, you're going to have a bonded agent to escort you through the port. Right. So you're going to need some help no matter what. But generally, you should walk away from there with all the paperwork you need for the DMV. Right. It shouldn't be any more work. You should have all your paperwork in order once you receive the car. Yeah. So, and that goes the same for the Japanese dealership. These personal sales, it's going to be hit or miss. You could have one that never got it registered, one that has a VIN swap, one that's legally registered. Right. It goes anywhere, so just make sure you understand the registration situation prior to giving anyone any money. Yeah. It's okay if it's not registered. Right. Just know you got work to do.
Yeah, and unless you're in somewhere weird like California or even Maine, like, shouldn't be any issues.
Right.
Like,
you
I know
maybe
with
got to
California,
pass some carb and stuff, and there's only certain models in Maine that they're even looking at, which we live here and don't even fully understand yet. Right. But when it comes to registration, just understand what you're up against. And then insurance for me was pretty easy. I think it was kind of for you. You just got to pay for it. I know do you use American Collectors?
I do not. I use Grundy.
Grundy.
Yeah.
There's Grundy, there's Haggerty, there's American Collectors. There's quite a few insurance groups out there that are going to handle these cars. And generally, it's value-based. So, like, for example, my R33s, I have value-based insurance on $80,000 for it. So, if that car gets totaled, I'm getting $80,000. So, I pay for that, though.
Right.
My insurance is not cheap.
It's on a sliding scale.
Right, because I want to get my absolute max replacement value for my car.
Right.
So just realize, with these cars, like, you do need to insure them.
Right.
Progressive's not going to insure it.
Yeah.
USAA is not going to insure it.
Allstate's not going to touch it.
They're not going to. You have to have specialty insurance because whether you want to admit it or not, this is a specialty car.
Right.
So this is kind of this was just a knowledge base on purchasing a right-hand drive car.
Quick little guide.
Right. I mean, you need to do, again, that word, due diligence. You need to
100%.
do all of your research. You need to watch YouTube videos. You need to read on forums, even from back in the day. You just need to understand what you're doing because there's nothing worse than buyer's remorse.
Right. Become obsessed with it before you even buy it.
Right. Yeah. Know that car inside and out before you even see it.
Right. That way there's no surprises
Right.
and you're not upset and
you're not bitching online about how you got screwed by a shady importer.
Right. And you got this rusty hunk of whatever in the garage.
Because it is also your responsibility to do this.
Right.
Like a lot of people go in there and cry about how they got screwed over by a shady importer. But come to find out, they did zero due diligence.
Right. They didn't pay for an inspection. They didn't pay for the auction sheet.
They don't know what car VX even is.
Yeah.
Which I get. We were green too. We were new too. But we've learned, and that's why we're putting this out here, so that hopefully we can just save you from having an R33 GTR with panels replaced and a respray that you think, So that's kind of the thing. So if you have any questions, you can always DM us, email us, whatever, and we'd be happy to help guide you the best that we can. We're no means anyone important or special or have any sort of credibility beyond the fact that we've done it multiple times.
Yeah.
And, it's gotten better every time in my example,
sure.
Like better experiences every time. So, for today, I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
Yep.
Make sure to follow us at RHD GUYS. And until next time, adios.
See ya.